Shadur, we talk oftentimes about quarterback being the most important position in the sport. We obviously spent a lot of time with Shadur throughout the process. He's highly accurate, can play well from the pocket, very productive college career. And
my guess is they go 0-4, maybe they go 1-3. Haslam's going to come down on Sunday, October 5th, and he says, I want Shadur to play against Minnesota. And the staff's going to say, we're in London. It's rough. Just give us one more week. We don't want Shadur having to go overseas. It's a big ask. And so they stave off the owner for a week. Flacco loses that game. I believe Shadur starts Sunday, October 12th.
Keep saying it. I believe Shedeur Sanders should play more games than any other quarterback on this roster this year, because he's the only guy that I look at and say, they might have something here, because I'm telling you right now,
Jimmy Haslam, many believe, forced Andrew Berry and Stefanski to draft Shedeur Sanders. They drafted Dillon Gabriel probably a round or two early, hoping to get out of the Shadur sweepstakes. So the question is, at some point, Haslam's going to come down and say, play Shedeur Sanders.
Colin Cowherd also revealed some inside details about the situation. Apparently, it wasn't just management pushing for the change.
Baker Mayfield, this is an ownership group that likes headlines at quarterbacks. Shadur's a headline. Dillon Gabriel's not. I mean, look, we're paying attention to the Cleveland Browns.
Quarterback is always going to be looming in every conversation. So I think they're going to want to get those guys action, Gabriel and Sanders. I think they're going to want to have one veteran quarterback. I don't know if there's a value in having both of those veteran quarterbacks and then having two rookies on the roster as well.
Breaking news is shaking the NFL world right now, and Browns haters are absolutely losing their minds. Sources close to the Cleveland Browns organization have just confirmed what many thought was impossible. Owner Jimmy Haslam is pushing hard for Shedeur Sanders to become the starting quarterback. But here's the kicker that nobody saw coming. This isn't just about football performance. There's a calculated strategy behind this move that could completely transform how we view rookie quarterbacks in the NFL. I've got insider details that reveal exactly why this decision is sending shockwaves through Cleveland's front office, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why this could be the most controversial quarterback decision of the decade. Stick around, because what I'm about to reveal about the internal power struggle will blow your mind. Let me paint you the exact picture of what's happening behind closed doors in Cleveland right now, because this timeline reveals a fascinating power struggle that most fans never get to see. My sources are telling me that Jimmy Haslam has already mapped out a specific timeline for when Shedeur Sanders takes over, and it's more aggressive than anyone realizes. Here's how I see this playing out, and trust me, this prediction is based on years of watching how NFL ownership operates when they want something badly enough. The Browns are likely going to stumble out of the gate. My guess is they go 0-4, maybe 1-3 if they're lucky. That's when the real drama begins. Picture this scenario. It's Sunday, October 5th, and Haslam comes down from his owner's box, walks into that coaching staff meeting, and delivers an ultimatum that changes everything. He's going to look Kevin Stefanski dead in the eye and say, I want Shadur to play against Minnesota. But here's where it gets interesting. The coaching staff is going to panic. They're going to scramble for excuses, and I can already hear the conversation. We're in London. It's rough conditions. Just give us one more week. We don't want Shadur having to make his debut overseas. It's too big of an ask for a rookie. They'll try to buy time, hoping that somehow Joe Flacco can pull a miracle out of thin air. But here's the thing about NFL owners. When they want something, they eventually get it. Flacco will lose that London game, probably in spectacular fashion, and that's when Haslam's patience runs out completely. Mark my words, Shedeur Sanders starts on Sunday, October 12th, and that date becomes a turning point in Browns history. Why am I so confident about this timeline? Because I've seen this movie before with other franchises. When ownership gets fixated on a player, especially a quarterback, they don't just suggest, they demand. And Haslam has a track record of making bold, controversial moves when he believes in someone. The fascinating part is watching how the power dynamics play out. You've got a coaching staff that's trying to protect their jobs by managing the situation carefully, going up against an owner who's already decided that Shadur is the future. It's like watching a chess match where everyone knows the outcome, but they're still going through the motions. What makes this even more compelling is that Shadur isn't just sitting quietly on the sidelines waiting for his opportunity. He's actively preparing for this moment, knowing that when his number gets called, he needs to be ready to justify his owner's faith in him. The pressure is immense, but that's exactly the kind of situation that separates franchise quarterbacks from career backups. This timeline isn't just speculation, it's based on understanding how NFL politics work when ownership, coaching staff, and player development all collide in one explosive situation. Now here's where this story gets absolutely wild, and it reveals something most NFL fans never understand about how draft decisions really get made. Colin Cowherd dropped some insider information that completely changes how we should view the Browns' draft strategy, and honestly, it's more dramatic than any soap opera. According to Cowherd sources, Jimmy Haslam didn't just influence the Shedeur Sanders pick, he practically forced it down the throat of his own front office. But here's the plot twist that makes this story incredible. Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski saw this coming from miles away, and they tried to outsmart their own owner. Picture this scene in the Browns' war room during the draft. Berry and Stefanski are sitting there, knowing that Haslam is obsessed with Shedeur Sanders, and they're desperately trying to find a way out of this situation. So what do? They draft Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round, probably a round or two earlier than his actual value, hoping to convince Haslam that they've already addressed the quarterback position. It's like watching a chess match where the general manager is trying to outmaneuver his own boss. They're thinking, if we take Gabriel early, maybe Haslam will be satisfied and we can avoid the Shedeur Sanders sweepstakes entirely. But here's what they didn't count on. Haslam is way smarter than they gave him credit for. The owner saw right through their strategy. He knew that Dillon Gabriel, while talented, doesn't have the star power, the name recognition, or the ceiling that Shedeur Sanders brings to the table. Gabriel might be a solid quarterback, but he's not going to generate headlines, sell jerseys, or create the kind of buzz that transforms a franchise's national profile. This is where the power dynamics in NFL organizations get really fascinating. You've got a front office that's trying to make safe football decisions, going up against an owner who understands that in today's NFL, you need more than just competent players, you need stars who can capture the imagination of fans and media alike. What makes this even more intriguing is that Haslam's track record with quarterback decisions is, let's call it, colorful. He's the owner who pushed for Johnny Manziel, who made the controversial Deshaun Watson trade, and who was heavily involved in the Baker Mayfield situation. Some people look at that history and see a pattern of poor decision-making, but I see something different. I see an owner who understands that in Cleveland, you can't just be good, you have to be compelling. The Browns have been competent before, and it didn't move the needle. Haslam is swinging for the fences because he knows that in a market like Cleveland, you either capture people's imagination or you fade into irrelevance. Now, with Shedeur Sanders in the building, that internal tension between safe football decisions and transformational moves is about to reach a boiling point. The coaching staff is still hesitant, still looking for ways to delay the inevitable, but Haslam's patience is wearing thin. This isn't just about football anymore, it's about vision, power, and the future direction of the entire franchise. Here's what most people don't understand about NFL ownership, and it's the key to unlocking why Jimmy Haslam is so determined to make Shedeur Sanders his starting quarterback. This isn't just about wins and losses, it's about something much more valuable in today's media landscape: attention. Colin Cowherd nailed it when he said that the Browns ownership isn't just looking for Shadur to deliver on the field, they're looking for headlines. And when you really think about it, this strategy makes perfect sense for a franchise that's been struggling to maintain national relevance for decades. Let me break down the psychology here, because it reveals something fascinating about how modern NFL ownership operates. Haslam has seen what happens when you make safe, conventional choices. You get competent football, maybe even some wins, but you don't get the kind of cultural impact that transforms a franchise from regional interest to national obsession. Look at the pattern. Johnny Manziel was a headline generator. Baker Mayfield was a headline generator. Deshaun Watson, despite all the controversy, was absolutely a headline generator. Now, some of these moves didn't work out on the field, but here's what they all accomplished. They made people pay attention to the Cleveland Browns. Think about it this way. When was the last time you heard casual NFL fans having passionate debates about the Cleveland Browns? When was the last time ESPN spent significant time analyzing Browns decisions? When was the last time social media was buzzing about what Cleveland was doing? It happens when they make bold, controversial moves that capture the imagination. Shedeur Sanders represents the perfect storm of everything Haslam is looking for. He's got the name recognition from his college career and his famous father. He's got the talent to potentially back up the hype. He's got the personality and charisma that translate well to media coverage. And most importantly, he's got that it factor that makes people want to tune in and see what happens next. But here's where this gets really interesting from a business perspective. In today's NFL, attention equals revenue. More headlines mean more national TV appearances. More national TV appearances mean better sponsorship deals. Better sponsorship deals mean increased franchise value. It's not just about football, it's about building a brand that transcends the sport itself. Compare this to Dillon Gabriel, who Cowherd correctly pointed out isn't a headline. Gabriel might be a perfectly competent quarterback, but he's not going to generate the kind of media buzz that drives merchandise sales, increases social media engagement, or makes casual fans suddenly interested in Browns games. This is why the internal resistance from the coaching staff is so fascinating to watch. They're thinking like football coaches, focused on game plans, development timelines, and minimizing risk. But Haslam is thinking like a CEO, focused on market positioning, brand development, and maximizing the franchise's cultural impact. The tension between these two approaches is what's creating all the drama we're seeing play out in Cleveland right now. It's not just about whether Shadur is ready to play, it's about whether the Browns are ready to fully commit to being a headline-generating, attention-commanding franchise rather than just another competent football team. Andrew Berry's recent comments about the Shedeur Sanders situation reveal something absolutely crucial that most people are missing, and it completely changes how we should interpret what's happening in Cleveland right now. When Berry said they didn't draft Shadur just to sit as a backup, he wasn't just making a generic statement about competition. He was revealing a fundamental shift in how the Browns organization views their quarterback situation. But here's the part that makes this story incredible. Berry also admitted that going into the draft, the Browns had no intention of selecting two quarterbacks. Think about what that means for a second. This wasn't some master plan that they'd been working on for months. This was a reactive decision made in real time when they saw an opportunity they couldn't pass up. Picture the scene in the Browns draft room when Shadur was still available in the 5th round. Berry and his staff are looking at their board, probably thinking they've addressed their quarterback needs with Dillon Gabriel, when suddenly they realize that a player they never expected to be available is just sitting there waiting to be picked. This is where Berry's football instincts kicked in, and it reveals something important about his character as a general manager. Despite whatever internal politics might be happening with ownership, despite whatever pressure he might be feeling, Berry recognized talent when he saw it. He knew that passing on Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round would be the kind of decision that haunts you for years. But here's what makes Berry's position so fascinating. He's now caught between his football instincts and the political realities of his organization. On one hand, he made a smart draft pick that could potentially solve the Browns' quarterback problems for the next decade. On the other hand, he's dealing with an owner who's pushing for immediate results and a coaching staff that's trying to manage the situation carefully. Berry's comments about Shadur being highly accurate and able to play well from the pocket aren't just generic scouting reports. They're his way of publicly supporting a decision that he knows is going to be scrutinized heavily. He's putting his reputation on the line by vouching for Shadur's abilities, which tells you everything you need to know about how confident he is in this pick. What's really interesting is how Barry is handling the unexpected nature of this situation. Most GMs would be defensive about making an unplanned pick, especially one that's creating so much internal drama. But Barry is embracing it, talking about how they jumped at the chance when the opportunity presented itself. This reveals something important about successful NFL executives. They have to be flexible enough to adapt when unexpected opportunities arise, even if it complicates their original plans. Barry could have stuck to his original strategy and avoided all this controversy, but he recognized that sometimes the best decisions are the ones you didn't plan to make. The fact that Barry is now publicly supporting Shadur's potential while also managing the internal politics of his organization shows exactly why he's been successful as a general manager. He's balancing football decisions with business realities, and he's doing it while maintaining his credibility with both ownership and the coaching staff. What's happening with Shedeur Sanders during OTAs and minicamps is absolutely remarkable, and it's the kind of story that reminds you why the NFL is so unpredictable and exciting. Most fifth-round quarterbacks spend their rookie seasons trying to figure out how to survive in the league, but Shedeur is rewriting that entire narrative in real time. From day one, Sanders has displayed something that you simply can't teach: poise under pressure. When you watch him in practice, you're not seeing a rookie who's overwhelmed by the speed and complexity of the NFL game. You're seeing a player who looks like he belongs, who's commanding huddles with the confidence of a veteran, and who's making the kind of sharp decisions that force coaches to take notice. But here's what makes his performance even more impressive. He's doing all of this while dealing with the unique pressure of being the owner's favorite. Most rookies get to develop quietly, away from the spotlight, with minimal expectations. Shedeur is operating in a completely different environment, where every throw is being analyzed, every decision is being scrutinized, and every practice is being viewed through the lens of whether he's ready to be the franchise quarterback. The fact that he's thriving in this environment tells you everything you need to know about his mental makeup. This isn't just about arm strength or accuracy, though he's got both of those in abundance. This is about having the psychological fortitude to perform when everyone is watching, when the stakes are high, and when failure isn't really an option. What's particularly fascinating is how Shedeur has embraced the challenge rather than being intimidated by it. According to reports from practice, he's not just going through the motions or trying to avoid mistakes. He's actively pushing himself, taking calculated risks, and showing the kind of leadership qualities that you typically don't see from rookies until their second or third year. His approach to the situation reveals a maturity that goes beyond his years. When asked about not always getting the reps he wanted early on, Shadeur's response was perfect. You've got to understand the situation you're in. Whether you're getting reps or not, you can take it negatively, or you can use it to push yourself harder. That mindset is exactly what separates franchise quarterbacks from career backups. Instead of complaining about his position on the depth chart or getting frustrated with limited opportunities, Shedeur used those challenges as motivation to work even harder. He understood that his opportunity would come, and he made sure he was ready when it did. Now, as he's climbing the depth chart, you can see the confidence building not just in Shedeur himself, but in everyone around him. Coaches who were initially skeptical are starting to believe. Front office executives who were worried about the political implications are starting to get excited about the football possibilities. Even veteran players are taking notice of how this rookie carries himself. The transformation from promising prospect to legitimate starter candidate has happened faster than anyone expected, and it's created a momentum that's becoming impossible to ignore. Shedeur isn't just meeting expectations, he's exceeding them in ways that are forcing the entire organization to reconsider their timeline and their approach to the quarterback position. The Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland represents something we rarely see in the NFL, a perfect storm of talent, opportunity, and organizational vision all colliding at exactly the right moment. What started as an unexpected fifth-round pick has evolved into the most compelling quarterback story of the season, and we're just getting started. The power struggle between ownership, management, and coaching staff reveals the complex dynamics that drive NFL decision-making behind the scenes. But at the center of all this drama is a young quarterback who's proving every day that he belongs on this stage. Whether you love this move or hate it, you can't ignore it. Shedeur Sanders has transformed from a developmental prospect into the future face of the Cleveland Browns, and that transformation is happening faster than anyone predicted. The era of Shedeur Sanders is upon Cleveland, and fans are ready to watch him lead the way. But here's what makes this story even more compelling. We're witnessing a fundamental shift in how NFL franchises approach rookie quarterback development. The old model of sitting players for years is being challenged by owners who understand that in today's media landscape, star power and immediate impact matter more than traditional timelines. The question isn't whether Shadur will eventually start, it's whether the coaching staff can maintain control over that timeline or if ownership pressure will force their hand sooner than they're comfortable with. Based on everything we've seen, my money is on Haslam getting his way, and when that happens, the entire NFL landscape could shift. Think about the ripple effects if Shadur succeeds immediately. Other franchises will start questioning their own conservative approaches to quarterback development. Draft strategies will change. The value of late-round quarterbacks with star potential will skyrocket. We could be looking at a case study that influences NFL decision-making for the next decade. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Jimmy Haslam's aggressive approach with Shedeur Sanders is brilliant ownership or dangerous meddling? Are you team start him immediately or team let him develop? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because this debate is just getting started. And here's a question that's been burning in my mind. If Shadur starts week 1 and struggles early, how long does ownership give him before the pressure becomes unbearable? I've got some theories about that timeline that I'll share in next week's video. If you want to stay ahead of every twist and turn in this developing story, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This Shedeur Sanders situation is moving fast, and you don't want to miss any of the insider details as they break. Speaking of insider information, next week I'm diving deep into the locker room dynamics and how veteran players are really responding to Shedur's rapid rise. Some of those conversations might surprise you, and they could determine whether this transition succeeds or creates even more drama in Cleveland. Hit that like button if you think this could be the most important quarterback decision the Browns have made in decades, and I'll see you in the next video where we break down exactly what needs to happen for Shadur to prove his doubters wrong.